This video is the introduction to the engineering notebook. So the first question that you would ask is, what is an engineering notebook and why do we keep them as engineers? And then pretty much what's going to go in the notebook, different sections in there, and of course how we lay out a standard page. So we'll give you some examples of that. So an engineering notebook is a record in which an engineer can document the work that they've done on a project. Or for a student engineer, they could do the documenting their classwork as well. The point of the notebook is to prove that you were the originator of that invention. If you're going to go patent something, if you can prove that you were the one that came up with the design, your notebook could be used as evidence showing that. Also, if you're in a big company and you're working on a project and something should happen to you, if you get sick or even hit by a bus or something other awful like that, another engineer would be able to take up your work and continue based on the information that is in your notebook and take it to the next step. So, like I mentioned before about being able to use it as evidence in a courtroom as far as patents are concerned, an engineering notebook is a legal document, and a real engineering notebook, when you get into an upper level class, and certainly in the real world, I hate using that term, but in the real world, you would use a pen to write in your engineering notebook. That way you can't erase anything that was in there, and it provides some permanence to your notebook that adds some legitimacy to your claim that you were the one who invented something, because everything's in pen, it's documented, and it's located in your notebook sequentially so that they can track the dates of when you actually came up with an idea. So again, it proves the origin of an idea that led to a solution. That's your proof that you did this. And since each page is dated and timed, it's actually shows when you came up with the idea, so that the person who came up with the idea first is the one who gets the patent awarded to them. So, people that keep an engineering notebook, certainly engineers in the research and development career field, this is first and foremost for them. Again, because they're the ones patenting the work. It's a legal document of what they've done. Engineering students would want to keep an engineering notebook as well, obviously, both at the high school and college level. It helps with your time management skills and also to just improve your process and your documenting. Just get you into the habit of using the notebook. So these are some of the things that you'll find in an engineering notebook. Certainly finding a problem, the research you did, just try to solve it. All of the steps of the design process, from sketching, brainstorming, calculations, any of those things in there. And you want to put the names of the people that were working on and there's the bell. You want to put the names of your collaborators. Anybody who worked on this project with you needs to be included in your engineering notebook, as well as any minutes of meetings. Pretty much, like I said, anything pertaining to a project. Everything you want to put in there. And notice that's in red down at the bottom. Everything you think you need to do. So, first page obviously is going to be your title page. And in your engineering notebook, I want you to reserve the first 4 pages, front and back, for your table of contents. So that's really just 2 pages, but one on the front, one on the back, so a total of 4 pages. That's going to be used to list your table of contents. Now, your table of contents and mine might be different in that the page numbers and dates are going to be different based on when you did something and what page you used. I mean, some students write bigger than others. There's the bell again. If you're not in class, you're tardy. Some students write bigger than others, and so and I write pretty small in my engineering notebook, so I might not need as many pages as other students who write larger, or I might need more than somebody who writes really small. So whatever it is, as long as your page numbers and your dates match your pages, that's all I care about. In addition to your table of contents, remember your entries are chronological. You're going to put them, it's just a continuing, ongoing thing. So if you do something out of sequence date-wise, that's okay. Again, just as long as your table of contents and dates match. That's all I care about. I'll keep a master table of contents on the board in the classroom so you'll be able to follow along with it. Okay, so here's a standard layout of a page. Again, notice this is a professional engineering notebook exemplar here, and if you see, they've got at the top, they'll have a continued on from button here from page. The pages are already numbered, and at the bottom, they've got a signature block built in there with the statement of proprietary information. For your class, you're using the composition notebooks, and so you won't have those pre-numbered pages, you won't have those signature blocks in here, so you're going to have to do that. So quick, easy, one point to get on every single engineering notebook page is to put the page number on there. So and of course it's also an easy way to lose a point if you don't have the page number on there. So page numbers are sequential and they're contiguous, so just keep going whatever page even if you have blank pages, still you need to number them. All right, you're using quad ruled paper. All pages are numbered. Each entry is dated at the top of the page. You want to sign at the bottom and date when you signed it. We're not going to worry about witness signatures in this class, but when you get to an upper level class, you will have a witness, your coworker, your partner on a project, or even just another classmate will sign that they witnessed the statement. Again, we're not doing that in this classroom, but I do want you to sign at the bottom of each page. So again, you need to create this signature block and sign at the bottom of the page. Don't worry about the proprietary nature of the notebook button. That we're not going to add in here either. So all I really need is your signature and the date at the bottom of the notebook. But again, that's every single page, even if you're not done with the work on that page. If you're going to continue it on to the next one, then you just write at the bottom, continued on page, and then at the top of the page, the next page, you'd say continued from. So here, this is page 9, so I'm going to say continued on page 10, or I could say continued from page 8 for this one right here. Okay, again, the best practices is that all work is in pen. In this class, because we do a lot of corrections, a lot of mistakes, we're learning still, we're going to do that in pencil. That way I don't have to do a bunch of line outs, or we don't ever use whiteout. We just line a clean line through a mistake, and you initial the line out, and then you write the correction right next to it if you can get it in there. For this class, you can erase, that's okay, and we'll just use pencil. We'll try to keep our notebooks as neat as possible so I can read them, but be prepared to use pen in the future. The other thing is that, and I've been a stickler this year about the notebooks that we're using, I want all of the notebooks to be bound notebooks like the ones I'm selling in class. That way you can't add pages to them. That's why a loose leaf binder is not used. And we don't want to remove pages. Like a spiral bound notebook would allow you to rip out a page and there'd be no way to tell that a page was removed from it. So I don't want you to be able to do that. I want you to use a bound notebook on the side so that you cannot add, or if you try to remove a page, you'll see that a page was removed. All right, so here's your page number. You're going to start at the top of the page, working left to right, and you want to fill the page up. You don't want to leave any blank spaces in there because, again, this is a chronological record in here, and we're showing that we've put all of our information in there. If you leave a blank space, then that would give you the opportunity to add information afterwards, and you don't want to do that. Again, we're trying to, if this is evidence of our work and we're using it to prove that we did something on a certain date, if you leave blank spaces in there, that allows you to backdate something that you've done by putting it on that page. So if you have blank space, like at the bottom or on the side, then what you want to do is draw a single line. This one looks like it's hand-drawn. You could use a ruler if you're kind of a bit of a neat freak like I am. You could use a ruler and just put a line and then sign across that line. You can see where this line is done here in the red box. I want you to do that for any blank space in there. Again, an easy single point to get and an easy single point to lose if you don't do that. But do not leave any blank space. Again, if we were using pen, I want you, if you make a mistake, you just do a single line through it. Don't cross it out. Don't scribble it out. Don't cover it up. Just do a single line and put your initials next to it. Again, in ours, I'm gonna allow you to erase, but we don't remove pages. Again, we date each entry. You could use one page for several days worth of work, and that's okay. We don't sign the bottom of the page until the page is filled. But what I want you to do is date when you put each section in here. So in this notebook in here, you can see the blow up where they've put the date here. This is looks like 15 May here in red. Again, each of these entries is going to have a date next to it. Even if it's the same day, that's okay. And then if we go back to this real quick, you'll see where they put an X through the blank space. And here, what they didn't do is sign it. They should have put a signature block right in here. But each one of these entries has got a date next to it. Now you can, and you will in this class, get some handouts or something that you've printed off using Autodesk where you're going to tape it into your notebook. So those are what are called inserts, and inserts are going to be attached to the notebook. It says here that you're going to use glue. I don't want you to use glue in here. I want you to use clear tape. And the reason is that the glue tends to wrinkle the pages when it's wet, and then as it dries, it permanently puts a little wave in there and makes your notebook look weird. And it also tends to run, and it just becomes a giant chocolate mess. So we're going to tape our entries in here. And to do that, you're just going to tape the corners down, and then you're going to sign your name right across a corner, an edge here that includes some on the tape, some on the paper, and some on the notebook. So that if I tried to remove this page and put a different one in there, it'd be really, really difficult to try to match up those signatures. So I want some on the tape, some on the paper, and some on the notebook itself. So you're kind of to put your signature right in this little area right over here. What we don't do is just stick something in there. No loose leaf items. Everything needs to be permanently affixed into your notebook on the appropriate page. And then also you want to date where you signed it. So you're going to sign it, again, across the tape, the paper, and the notebook, and then put a date there as well, kind of on both. Again, you want to sign your name so it extends across both the notebook page and the inserted document, and I think on the tape as well. Sign and date each page before you go to the next page. Again, just like they did in here. This is the designer signed here and dated it. Now, you're supposed to, on a traditional engineering notebook, sign and have a witness sign and date, but we're not going to worry about that, and we're not going to worry about the proprietary information signature either. So in the sketch, to make things a little easier to understand for somebody watching them, you need to put annotations in there. You can talk about something that you think needed to be changed. You can do a descriptor that explains something a little bit better. Whatever it is, I want you to annotate and label all the parts of your sketch, and then use descriptors. That's what this little paragraph is here. This paragraph here describes what the picture is trying to say. So yes, while we use sketches in here to help us describe what the part is, the words that go with it also give meaning to the sketch, so they work hand in hand. If you're using calculations, I want to see the formula, and I want the variables written out so that you could see them. If you see this little blow up right here of this formula here, they're using the wheel and axle computing mechanical advantage. I want to see the formula. Mechanical advantage equals, and then the radius of the wheel, W, and the radius of the advantage. All right, and that's explained what these variables are here. These are the explanations annotated, and then you do your equation in here. So every one of these in your notebook is going to be written this way. Now, obviously, if you're using the same formula on several times on a page, that's okay. You don't have to write it every time. But get into the habit of doing that. That's how STAR testing expects you to do formula work as well, and to get full points on those open-ended response questions, especially in the physics AP test. You'll want to be able to do that. So you write out the formula and all the variables and what they mean. Okay, so again, you have it annotated explaining what that picture is. and I have those formulas written out and the variables defined. Okay, so the next best practice, put comments in your notebook. If you do your construct and test a prototype and you test it, evaluate your results. Evaluate, even if you go into the final project, put your results in there and comment on it. You know, if we'd have done this again differently, all of you that did the flying aircraft project, most of you had changes that you wanted to make to it and wished you could have flown it again. Put those reflection comments in there at the end of your assignment. You know, you say, okay, in the future we should have done it this way, or this would have streamlined the process if we'd have done this task first. So that's all your reflection goes in there. Obviously, the watchword, be neat. I've got to read these things. Engineers write neatly. They don't do a lot of writing. They write in block letters, or so that would print, so that things are neater and easier to understand. You want to be accurate, legible, and thorough. And I know neat and legible's sort of redundant, but that's okay. We like redundancy. There's some examples. Now they did use handwriting in these, but again, that's kind of what they did back at the turn of the century in here. This is the gentleman famous for his plastic kitchen storage stuff. You know him as know it as Tupperware. This is designer notes for an electronic fly catcher, which would be really useful. This is Howard Head, the designer of the large head tennis rackets. Okay, a note on course binders. I don't require you to keep a course binder in this class, but I do think it's a good idea for you to have something like that. That course binder would be something where you store any handouts or other material that doesn't go in your engineering notebook. I'm pretty specific in there. Like most class notes, we're not going to keep in the engineering notebook. So if you want to have a class binder to put your class notes or something like that in, then by all means keep that. And I recommend you do that for your reference materials and handouts as well. You know, and I have a 3-hole punch available. So if you have just a thin binder, again, it's totally up to you. I'm never going to check it. It's not gradable. It's just for your own reference. And so if you have either space in an existing 3-ring notebook or something like that, by all means, I encourage you to keep all those handouts and documents. Again, this is what we covered today. We talked about what an engineering notebook is and why we keep it, and who keeps it. Again, so you as engineering students are going to keep a notebook to keep a record of your class activities, something that you can reference in the future. We have a table of contents and your standard page entries. We talked about that, best practices on that layout. I encourage you to go back, look at the PowerPoint presentation that's attached on the assignment page 1.0. And then there's a handout that I want you to complete as well as you look through those and identify each of these best practices examples on it.